What's up and welcome to Idle Insights, a show where each week I, Treavor Bettis, talk to interesting people about idle champions and Dungeons and Dragons. And joining me this week is the incredible Todd Stashwick. Hello!
I'll take it. Incredible. What a superlative. I'll take it.
I feel like you deserve it. I
Well,
gotta be
incredible. I always apply it to Hulk, so that might suggest that I have rage issues.
He's
That's
got him
my
under
secret.
control.
That's my secret cap. I'm always angry. Yeah.
Todd, if folks in chat right now don't know who are you for those fine folks who may not know?
Oh, wow. I am a carbon-based, sentient human sapien who hails from the Midwest, Chicago, Illinois. I am a writer, actor, improviser, dungeon master, geek impresario.
Ooh, I love that. Put that on a business card, please.
It kind of is. Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining me today. We're going to talk about some fun stuff that we've got going on in Idle Champions and the good charity that we're going with. But Todd, before we get to that, I want to start with the icebreaker question I always like doing with new guests. How'd you get into D&D?
Dungeons and Dragons. Well,
Yes.
This is a tale that I've told before, but it's always a fun one to revisit. Or you be the judge. You'll let me know if it was fun. So I want to say probably around 78. I was downstairs in the basement apartment of my cool older cousin Tori, and he took out a piece of paper that had a bunch of numbers and words on it. I could read at the time. I was like 8 or 9. No, I was 9 going on 10, maybe 10. He took out a bowl, and he took a very slow drag off the bowl. It was 1978,
Of course,
Trevor.
right? Of course it was.
And so he deemed, so I'm just sitting there, and he takes out this stuff, and he takes out these fascinating looking math rocks, and I'm like, what are you doing? What is this? I mean, aside from the weed, I was like, what is that cool older cousin Tori who plays Puff the Magic Dragon and has a goatee? And he's like, this is Dungeons and Dragons. And it was that like the clouds parted, and
Literally.
And so this is the year after Rankin and Bass Hobbit, and literally, and the year of the Bakshi Lord of the Rings. And so I was already neck deep in fantasy and the explorations of it, and that trippy kind of late 70s fantasy. And along comes Dungeons and Dragons. Now I wasn't playing it, but he was trying to explain it, and I was somehow trying to connect, what is all of this writing and numbers and cool rocks have to do with like Lord of the Rings? And he tried to explain it to me, and it slowly made some sense, but then a year later, it was a brush fire among me and my friends. Now, the game was everything we were doing. It was probably the summer of 79, where myself, my friend Jim Radzim, Matt Lunak, my cousin Scott, we recruited other people, Mike Hinkey. We recruited other people into Oliver, my best friend Oliver. So now it was, I mean, it was 79, man. So we were in our orange shag carpeted basements with wood paneling, fighting demogorgons and trading who's going to be the DM and who's not, and rolling up our characters and drawing them, and watching Excalibur and Beastmaster and Hawk the Slayer. And then junior high school starts, and my cousin and I get all the petitions and a student advisor to start the D&D club.
Did you really?
Dude, come on.
Oh, that's so cool.
I'm a firm believer in make it yourself. So
Hell yeah.
So, and I say that to people when they want to play, they're like, I want to play D&D. I'm like, get the starter kit, you be the DM, you start the party. And then so now, like, I got the D&D club, I'm playing hardcore. I'm going to camp up in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin.
Oh.
Yeah, my cousin and I would walk along the shore of Lake Geneva over to a little hobby shop called the Dungeon. And we would, kneel at the altar. uh
Oh
and
man,
again, in my
that's so
brain, I'm thinking
cool.
it's going to look like some kind of like high-end amusement park dark castle walk, but it was wire racks, minis, and dudes with beards. um and so now I'm still playing very hardcore. My dad built me a box for all of my books and my minis, and I'm painting minis. And then the summer before freshman year of high school, so this would be summer of 82.
Mm.
Summer of 82, I went to another camp, and my cousin had belonged to like a Covenant church, and so he was the people that was the camp we were going to.
Mm.
And all the youthful camp counselors were like, you do know that is the gateway to the devil.
Oh my gosh, they're right there in the middle of it.
Right there in the middle of it. And satanic panic descended upon us. We came back from that camp, and promptly, much to my parents' dismay because of all the money they invested, I got rid of all my stuff.
Really?
Look, if I had an imagination enough to play D&D, I had imagination enough at the time to believe that Satan was real.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was spooked. I was an imaginative kid who was spooked, and I didn't want any part of that. I saw Mazes and Monsters.
Oh my
I
gosh.
watched
Tom
Tom
Hanks'
Hanks
first starring role.
go down the rabbit hole of madness.
Yeah. Did you see that original 60 Minutes that
Yeah,
happened
of
as it?
course.
Oh my god.
And when they're interviewing Gygax, my favorite thing that Gygax ever said, he's like, "Look, if I could cast spells, do you think I'd be a game designer?" Um, like,
My favorite part of that was some dude they got on there that was just like, I saw a child summon a real Dungeons and Dragons demon. I'm like, how are you taking this man seriously in any way?
it was ratings bait, and it
Yep.
was probably an election cycle. And so, I mean, look, we're doing it now. We fearmonger.
Oh yeah.
We fearmonger, and so that was it. And I was done and dusted, and I walked away from the hobby after almost 4 hardcore years
Yeah.
of playing it, and it defined me. I mean, it's all we talked about. We would go and I guess it was a precursor to LARPing. We would go out into a field for hours and just my buddy Matt Lunak, my cousin Scott, and I, we would go out for hours and play in the field, just telling each other the story, goblins, and like we would have a thing that was our crossbow and whatnot. It was really fun. So then, cut to 2012.
Oh wow.
Yeah, a good long time. So 2012 rolls around. I'm at an audition, and I'm sitting around, and this is again long in my rear view. I've now moved to Los Angeles. I've been in LA for 12 years already. I'm way out of college. I have children. And Abraham Ben Ruby is at this audition, and he was like, I was up late playing D&D. And I was like, what? Because this was the first time I'd heard about grown-ass people playing Dungeons and Dragons, and people still playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
Because back then, it was a kid's game for us. And the fact that adults were currently playing it, and Satan was behind me. And he is. Look.
Green Devil. There he is.
Green Devil. So I just immediately started pelting him with questions. He's like, "Yeah, me and Matthew Lillard have had a game going," and my mind was blown. So this was 11 years ago, right? So it was about 11 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was 43 3 years old, and I was suddenly now on eBay looking up all of the old books
Yeah.
and just buying them back and be like, I need these. I just need them. Like I
Yeah.
needed these totems of power from my past that meant a lot to me, that sowed the seeds of my imagination, that led to me becoming an actor ultimately in many ways. I was playing characters and doing stories long before I knew I wanted to be an actor, but I was acting. And so I just started buying the books back, and I was like, I still don't have anybody to play with, and I was not interested in the current editions.
Yeah.
I just wanted to just touch and there was definitely no one who was going to play AD&D with me. And so I just had them, and I was wowed by them, and I was just to smell the paper and look at all those Errol Otis drawings and the Trampier and the Darlene of it all. It just felt good. It felt right. It was a bit of a homecoming. And then probably about 3 years later, 2015, I just was like, enough is enough. I got to start playing D&D. And so I was on Facebook. I'm like, I just got to play D&D, world. I just sort of called out to the void, and my buddy Yuri Lowenthal, not within an hour.
Oh, Spider-Man.
So Yuri shows up in my house with the starter kit in hand. And he's like, me too. I want to play too. I'm dying. I don't have a group. I want to play. And he hands me, he goes, happy birthday. And he hands me the starter kit. And then I booked 12 Monkeys and left town for 3 years.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So all of that got put on the back burner, except that my trainer for 12 Monkeys, a man by the name of David Nett, is a DM and a like-minded nerd, and fastly became one of my best friends. And he's like, when you're done with 12 Monkeys, which would be late 2017, let's get a game going. So I immediately just voraciously devoured the starter kit and the information in there, and just waited for his shepherding upon my return from Toronto. And I've been playing in that same ongoing since early 2018.
That's awesome. Wow. That is one heck of a D&D journey there.
It's a big one, yeah.
Yeah.
Circuitous, yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. Like I guess I gotta say, like I like I said, I ask this for like every guest that I have on here, but like that is one of the most classical like D&D starts that I've ever heard. Like that is
well, it's got the panic in there.
Yeah. When like Stranger Things like kind of like spotlighted this
reignited, yeah.
And like when people think of like, oh, what was it like to start in D&D back then? That's probably like similar to what people would think.
Well, it really, the vibe was very specific, and I think the Duffer Brothers, even though they weren't doing it, whatever research they did, whoever they talked to, they hit a bullseye. That is what it was. We were the nerds. We were mocked. The only thing was I think there's a misnomer to think that it was a boys' game. We had many girls in our Dungeons and Dragons club back in the day, but there was something really interesting, and I was just thinking about this for my own joy. There was something really interesting about the combination of, in the 80s, of all that like 8-bit synth music and all of the weird synth of like Tangerine Dream and the Legend soundtrack, and then all of the imagery and like Led Zeppelin and Styx and Kansas, and this whole proggy vibe combined with like the Bakshi Wizards and Lord of the Rings. I'm like, oh, it's progcore. It's like this it's this progcore vibe that is, when someone says D&D to me, it lives in this kind of dark ages. Because I think current 5e is very Italian Renaissance.
Okay,
feeling.
yeah.
And it's beautiful and it's lush. But when I was playing it back in the day, it was like muddy and gritty, and we were just trying to hope to survive that week's session. And you're like, oh, he's dead. Write up another character. And so I'm enjoying kind of drilling down onto this progcore vibe. And so I'm currently writing my own campaign setting to try and capture some of that flavor for myself and my friends. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I could sit here and talk to you all day just about like your journey through D&D, and I'm
There's a lot
literally
to do,
forcing myself.
but I'm
to
sure
move
you
on.
have other questions.
Oh yeah. But specifically, we're here to talk about Boom Boom. Which,
My
first off,
boy.
what an incredible name. Why don't you tell folks who Boom Boom is?
I'm going to go further back,
Oh,
and I'm going to say I had an English bulldog for a very long time. He lived to 13 years old, and his name was Boris. And Boris was our boy. He was our sweet big boy, slobbery, stinky bulldog as they are. And we had him for 13 years. And Boris passed, and it took a while for my wife to sort of feel okay, but a bulldog shaped hole started to form in my heart. And I just kept, and so between my daughter and I, to put pressure on my wife, we named the dog that we didn't have yet Boom Boom.
okay.
And so as a passive aggressive act, I would look at my daughter and go, "Hey Tilly, where's Boom Boom?" "Oh right, we don't have him yet."
Dang.
So that when we eventually my wife finally is like, "Okay, I'm ready to have another bulldog in the house." He was pre-named, preordained, and he, that is his fame.
There is a real Boom Boom. It makes me so happy.
That's our dog. That's our
Ah!
dog. My dog's name is Boom Boom, and he's an English bulldog, and he looks identical, save the tiefling horns, to the rendering for Idle Champion.
Yeah. Boom Boom is going to be in the game next week for chat out there. We worked with Todd on this familiar, and it's going to be helping out Extra Life. So all proceeds from the first week of Boom Boom sales is going to go to Extra Life and help us support them. We're also going to be doing some other stuff, so keep an eye out for that from our socials. But Boom Boom is just one of the, like, I heard about this familiar like from the first time like you and V had the meeting about it. Like she came into me and she's like, "You're not prepared. Like you're not prepared to see this thing."
It's so accurate. So I had been working on when V came to me. I had written during lockdown with I had co-created with Brandon Cleely a Dungeons and Dragons inspired cocktail book called Mystic Libations. So I've been living in like the tavern world because we created a tavern for the book, and there's over 100 and something fantasy RPG inspired cocktail drink recipes in it. And so when she's like, "Well, what do you want the familiar to be?" I'm like, "Well, I have the dog, and I've been living in like the world of taverns. So why don't we make him a Tavernkeep? There's something so great about like a big English bulldog, walking with a pint of ale on his back."
How dare you just do that voice out of the blue?
Right? Right?
That was incredible.
Right? And I just like the idea that like this is the like just that big burly Tavernkeep that when you walk into the tavern, there he is greeting you. And then just to take it to push it a little more in the fantasy realm, we took and of course he's got a vest and an apron and a bar and a bar rag.
Every good Tavernkeep needs it.
100%. And then but I just thought, well, give him the tiefling horns. Like, let's give him something to make him a little from the Feywild. Something that pushes him out of just being a dog to being like a Feywild bulldog. So give him the ram's horns. Bull's horns would have been weird. But just the big, thick curling around his stupid ears. And the constant drool. It's a little off-putting to see him holding your beverage while a string of drool is coming down his face.
That's why I love that.
But here we are.
Has the beer on the back, like it's like it's just like you just bring it over.
Well,
your
he's
table.
like he's toddling along. Yeah, and he's a mess when he walks. He's just this like shambling mountain, and yet doesn't spill a drop.
He's good at his job.
That's his gig. That's his gig. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
I have to ask because like because this is one of those familiars that I saw. I'm just like, I see where the points came in. Is have you thought about any more of like what the tavern he owns is named or
Well,
anything?
he works at the Mystic Libations.
Okay.
He works at the Bloodthorn Tavern,
Ooh.
which is the name of the tavern from the book, and it's also part of my whole, like, in my brain,
Yeah,
also part of the whole progcore thing that I'm creating. I just did a charity event on on the 30th of September to raise money to fight childhood cancer, and I set it in this new realm of Eleonora, in the land of Fear, and the Bloodthorn Tavern is part of that world. So I'm like, and the proprietor, she's a tiefling. She has the horns, so he would be, right there by her side
yeah.
with the matching horns. Yeah.
I like that idea that maybe he is some kind of fake creature. It's like, I like this look, but I also like what you got going on there, so I'm gonna go
Well,
see it.
100%. It's like, well, look, people tend to look like their pets.
That's true. That's true.
So yeah,
I love that. Oh my god. I genuinely cannot tell you that, like, I'm just like, oh, Boom Boom's real. That makes me
yeah.
feel good.
He's a big slobbery mess. He's a big, stupid, fun animal. Yep.
But yeah, so chat, that is we're announcing this today. There is a blog post that's going up with this episode premiering. I guess I didn't say that this is pre-recorded, so yeah, this is not live right now. If you're hoping for the giveaway, I mean, check back in like 5 minutes or something like that. I don't know what time really is. I don't know if there's edits.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, so keep an eye out for that next week. Boom Boom's gonna be in the game. Won't spill a drop in your familiar's formation.
Nope.
It's genuinely impressive.
There's a lot he can't do, but
Yeah.
that he can.
Yeah. Well, Todd,
Don't ask him to sit with grace.
I imagine he just kind of back in flops.
Oh, he
like,
does. The
there's
back legs just sort of go out, like Bambi on ice. Yeah.
Beautiful picture of that, but below.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I told you before we started recording that I did the Black Dice Society editing, and I wanted to talk to you a bit about like that and like streaming D&D games and stuff like that. First, I don't actually know, how did you end up being a part of Black Dice Society?
B. Dave.
Oh,
Dave and I have. Yeah, I mean, we've met through Jasper's Game Day, I think. No, you know what? I met B. Dave at was it called D&D Celebrate? D&D Live?
D&D
What was
Live.
it called? D&D Live. I met him at D&D Live back when the Avernus one. And I met him there, and then again, it's like once you're part of this family of TTRPG, there's an immediacy of familiarity, an immediacy. Y'all speak a very similar language, and B. Dave and I hit it off, and he had said, "Hey, would you ever want to guest on Black Dice? I want you to play Van Richten." And I was like, oddly enough, my buddy Morgan Peter Brown had been doing a home game of Ravenloft, and he had me playing Van Richten in that.
Are you serious?
So I popped in. So I'd already had my claws into the guy.
Okay, that explains. Because
I
like,
should say fangs.
I mean, you'd have to, right?
Unfortunately.
Like I remember editing that one, and like as soon as I'm like, oh man, he's got a voice for it, he's got a cadence to it, like he's already all in this. That makes so much sense.
It's like I act for a living or something.
Well, you know what I mean, though? It's like it's Van Richten. It's like one of those things where it's like, the thing that I love about kind of the D&D lore and stuff is that there are all of these characters that have so many interpretations across tables, across streams. Like my Volo is not going to sound like Mark Hume's Volo or something like that. And so when you hear someone who's got this, it feels, you can tell when they've played it before. You know, like they've played their home game or something like that.
It's fun. I mean, he's such a joy to play, and also to play against certain expectations of him. I mean, he's a sharp dude, and he's strong, and I think and there's a tragedy to him. I mean, he's a great character.
Yeah. I mean, I will say some of my favorite scenes was you and
And the
Mark
puppet.
Meer. Well, the
Oh,
puppet was
Mark.
great. Don't get me wrong, that was great. But like the scenes with you and Mark Meer were just so good because like he's all fanboying and you're just yes, it's fine. It was so good.
Rickton has no time to sign pictures. Yeah. Yeah.
Have so you said you had a game with Ravenloft. Have you run or been in Curse of Strahd proper?
Actually, what I did do for my son is I ran a 5e adaptation of the original 80s module. It was a conversion. So I ran that because Strahd is a year-long commitment, if not more, and the original module is probably about a 6-session commitment. And so it ran about 6 sessions.
Okay.
And so I just didn't have the bandwidth to commit to the entire adventure.
Yeah.
And so I ran the original, the OG Ravenloft before it was called Curse of Strahd.
That's awesome.
It was fun.
I love the 80s gothic horror of that original box. Like even just that the picture of Strahd on the balcony and
With
everything.
the cape going, so good. As if there's a wind coming from the inside of the castle.
He's got AC. He's Strahd. Come on.
It's great. It's great.
So you talked about doing Jasper's game day and stuff. Like, have you done other stuff with D&D streaming?
Well, I mean, mostly it's been for. I've done stuff for D&D Beyond. I've jumped in on friends' games. I'm more. I prefer home games, because it was the Heisenberg effect. Like knowing you're being observed, and you're doing it for the audience. I'm not playing D&D anymore. I'm putting on a show.
Okay.
And so yes, I am rolling dice, and yes, we are using the mechanics and all that, but it's more for the folks at home. But the homecoming for me for D&D was sitting around the table. And I'm going to take this moment to give a plug to the Weathered Dragon, who the Weather Dragon, Mr. Jimenez, and I collaborated on a Stashwick game table. I have a signature game table.
What?
Yeah. And I actually have my cousins, my buddy Matt, my cousin Tori's names in dwarven runes. So every time I sit down at the table, they are here with me. And my cousin Tori, not to get too maudlin, but he took his own life. So I have him with me every time I play D&D.
I love that's so cool.
And you can customize it and put your own things on it. And make it your own table, but put quotes from books and stuff inside.
Yeah.
And well, it's really fun. But I am much more prefer the home game. I much more prefer the 6-hour experience of just locking myself in the nerd lair here with my friends. And but to what you said, the streaming experience opened me up to a whole new set of friends that I had not known, and the TTRPG streaming community really opened their arms to me and were so kind and inviting that I was suddenly DMing for Jasper's Game Day and DMing for Dungeon Run, and it really was, rubber meets the road there when you got to do this stuff in front of people.
Yeah.
But I've made a lot of amazing relationships. I think I met V through this community as well, and so. And some of the people I have not met in real life yet.
Yeah.
I've only met them through streaming. But I just met Abria on the picket line.
Oh, I saw those pictures. Ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I not met her in person. She and I had played a TTRPG that my buddy Mike Nystel created. And so we met online. So I don't personally stream my own games.
Yeah.
Mostly, I really now like to use streaming for charitable purposes.
That's
because I get a lot of people because of the shows that I've been on and the type of people, I have a lot of kindred with I'm a fan of a lot of the things that I get to be a performer in. And so there's a lot of crossover in the D&D community. So I have a lot of people, and I'm not quiet about the fact that I love D&D. So a lot of people ask me, hey, are you streaming? When are you going to stream? You should stream your home games. I'm like, no.
Yep.
Sanctum sanctorum.
Yes.
But when I do stream, I want to use those nerd powers for good.
Yeah.
And raise some
Makes
money
sense.
for good causes. Yeah.
It makes sense now. Like what I said, the thing about Nerd, like it's always like it's my job, because I think that was the thing. Like I have this thing in my head of like D&D and acting, like they're very much the same, but they're different in my head. And so I think that's where, when you said the streaming is more of like you're the entertainer and stuff, that makes sense. You are turning on those skills that you have honed over so long. Whereas I'm just like, I'm just rolling some dice, and that's why I'm not as good at it, you know?
Well, yes, yeah, but you are also aware that you're streaming.
Yeah.
You're aware. I mean, just by the definition of that, you have a camera pointed at you, that affects our behavior. The conversations we have are different when you got a camera pointed at you. The way you're looking for your moment when you're streaming, because look, there's a paying audience. There's people. Some people's livelihood is streaming, and so it is a form of entertainment. It is not a hobby, and that's why people call themselves D&D performers.
Yeah.
I don't call myself a D&D performer at home.
Yeah.
At home, I'm playing D&D.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you were saying like, what, people asking why don't you stream your home games, stuff like that. I've had people say that too. It's like, no, that is a different thing. Like this is my comfort area. Like
this is where I unwind we have the opportunity to take 20 minutes to figure out how to open a door.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we're scared of what might be on it. Is there a trap? Are there runes? Should we read the runes? Who knows how to speak those runes? You often don't have the luxury to sort of analysis paralysis when you're streaming, and there's a bit more of a keep it moving.
I had a group that was like, why don't we start streaming? I'm like, well, remember that time we spent 30 minutes scared of a glowing fish in front of us?
No one will find that interesting.
No, absolutely not.
And to the credit of and I think the real, in many ways, they weren't the first, but they were certainly the loudest, which was the Critical Role guys.
Yeah.
They were already very adept improvisers and skilled vocal performers.
Yeah.
They were great actors and great improvisers. So they were going to bring all of those skills to bear at the table, and it paid off because they're so entertaining. Mm-hmm. They're just entertaining as human beings because they're professional entertainers.
Yeah. I used to run games at a Barnes & Noble for kids, and like I would say at the beginning of every session, just as a heads up, I am not Matt Mercer. I'm not going to be at Matt Mercer's level.
But it's a different thing. It's a different experience when you're sitting around a table and you're probably their favorite dungeon master.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think you don't need to be Mercer level of a performer, but it's just putting your characters in tight spots, encouraging them to find creative ways out of it, punishing them when they need punishing. What is it? Gary Gygax used to say, I don't kill my characters. I just give them opportunities to make bad decisions.
Facts.
I'm paraphrasing, of course, but he's like, they do a great job of that all on their own. But yeah, I mean, it's a different animal, and a valid animal. It's a wonderful animal. I'm glad it is exposed. I'm glad I've been able to be invited. I mean, I still feel like I'm a tourist in what is other people's homeland when it comes to streaming D&D. I'm a traveler in their world, and I'm fortunate to be invited to the table.
I like that. I do want to ask this one because like I feel like this is one that you get asked a lot in interviews and stuff like that. But like this is my opportunity, so I want to do it. How did you get into acting? Like what was that journey?
Well, again, that Muppet song, Because in my head, it starts when we were kids. A show off at school, making faces at friends. You're a clown and a fool, doing pretzels and bird calls. And that's all I will do to stay within the.
Thank you. Don't get mad, Twitch. Don't get mad. Be chill.
The royalty free zone. So I sang just enough, but that's the long and the short of it. Is I was always a hammy kid. I literally remember building puppets and setting up a puppet stage and putting on the Muppet movie soundtrack and putting chairs in the garage and inviting the kids over to watch it. So I was putting on shows and doing impressions and playing D&D and playing Star Wars action figures and Star Trek action figures. I was always that kid, but I thought I was going to be a cartoonist. And then around late sophomore year, early junior, I think, I didn't like getting notes from my art teacher.
Okay.
It felt way too personal, but I was already way involved with, and look, it was to my own detriment. I could probably be a much better artist had I listened. But I was getting way much more out of being in theater and doing plays and meeting the girls in the plays. I enjoyed the social aspect as much as I enjoyed the claps. And so around then I just was like, yeah, acting is louder and I can handle the feedback because we're all in this. I'm not on the outside. I didn't write the thing. It's a group effort. I'm just a piece of the machine, as opposed to when I put pencil to paper. Well, that's the inside of my head in front of me. How can you give it a note?
Yeah, that makes sense. So from acting in school, like what was the progression to like getting on screen?
Acting in college, and then I mean, look, I always wanted to be Bill Murray, and so I was sort of hell bent for leather on like, okay, what was his trajectory? His trajectory was Saturday Night Live. How did he get there? Well, he did Second City, Chicago. I'm like, okay, well, good thing I already live in Chicago. So I just traced his journey, and then tried to, ape it as much as I could. What's the phrase? We spend our time trying to be like our heroes, and how we mess up is our voice.
I have not heard that before, and I'm going to remember that one now.
Right? I think Elvis Costello said it. I don't think he said mess. He used an F-bomb, but this is about a mobile game, so let's keep the profanity down to a minimum. And so that was it. I was like, I'm going to go to college for this, and then when I get out of college, I'm going to go get a job at Second City, even if I'm just waiting tables and bartending, just soaking in the show, and then I will audition for Second City. Hopefully, that would lead to Saturday Night Live. All of those steps worked up until Saturday Night Live choosing not to hire me, but I was up for it.
You got it. You auditioned for it.
Yeah, we stood where the host does his monologue, and was flown out to New York, but I didn't book it. But it was, you look for these tea leaves, and that was one of them. That was one of them. I was like, yeah, it's time to move to New York. And I had an agent going, he's up for SNL. I'd like to represent him. So I went with that agency, and then that led to being in auditioning for television commercials and pilots and guest star roles, and then it's not a highly original story at that point. It's a pretty much, this is how it was done in the early 2000s. Is you took generals with casting directors, and hopefully you had something to show for your work. I fortunately had booked a lot of national commercials for a very long time. That was my bread and butter, feeding my wife and son at the time. And there were some commercials that you could point to. Like I did a Jeep commercial that only ran in LA during pilot season.
Oh, wow.
And it was very funny. It was like just me trying to put together a tent, doing a bunch of physical comedy so that my agent could go, he's the Jeep guy. You should see him. And they're like, oh, he's funny. We just saw that commercial during the Today Show this morning. Yeah, bring him in. And so I was doing, but all the time, I remember saying, you got to make it yourself. While all this was going on, I had a theater company in Chicago alongside Second City. I moved to New York. I started an improv group with a bunch of guys directed by Shira Piven, Jeremy's sister, Adam McKay's wife. And then I moved to LA. I started an improv school. I had 2 different improv shows going.
Damn.
Yeah, so I'm always keeping the sauce warm, you know?
Yeah.
So I was always ready to serve.
Jeez. What was like the first like non-commercial role that you had?
Define non-commercial.
Well, like on a TV show or
Okay, yeah, thank you. There was a show called Remember When, WENN. It was set in like the 30s at a radio station, like when radio was king.
Mm-hmm.
And fun fact, it was written by Rupert Holmes, who wrote the Pina Colada song.
Oh,
he was the executive producer, but his claim to fame prior to that was the Pina Colada song. So I played a gangster on that. And then at around that time, and I think that's what might have gotten me my SAG card.
okay.
I worked with Philip Bosco on that. And then I did what every actor in New York does, which is every Law and Order.
you got the whole collection under your belt.
So I did Law and Order. I just talked to Barry Bostwick about this at a convention. I did a show called Spin City that was
I
Michael
love
J.
Spin
Fox.
City.
I did an episode of that. Yeah, I mean, so I just started booking guest star roles. In the meantime, I was flying out to LA, auditioning for pilots. I booked a pilot with Jamie Gertz and Maria Patillo and Jeremy Piven and Ari Gross. And I played Jeremy's best friend in that. And then I realized I'm flying back and forth to LA and I have a 2.5-year-old. It's time to move to LA. Talking about reading the tea leaves. That is one thing I've been pretty good at is knowing when to lift anchor.
The first thing that like I know that I can remember seeing you and recognizing you was the Riches, and that was Riches was the first thing that I like saw you in and remembered you in, and I love that role because you genuinely terrified the crap out of me. Like I was in high school when that show started, and I remember watching the premiere, and I was just like,
at this point, I wither like the villain at the end of Last Crusade.
I know, but you know,
I was 40 when I did the Riches.
Yeah.
Yeah, that show, it's funny, that show, I had done a pilot with Jay Moore. I've done 21 television pilots, by the way. And having nothing to do with the band. Yeah, I got that at the ready. How often do you get Will Wheaton, by the way?
Oh, you mean like on the show?
Like you look like you remind me of.
Oh no, I have not gotten that.
You have a lot of Will.
Oh, thank you.
And so I booked this pilot that I thought was going to be like billboards in Times Square. My comedy train is leaving this station.
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. And I was told as much, that like we were the pick. We were going to be on these 2 unknown shows called 30 Rock and The Office that were also going to release that year. And we were going to be the middle show. And push came to shove. Ultimately, we were dropped from the pickup. And I was really in a bad mood about that, kind of furious and very sad. And I was given this audition for a show called Lowlifes. And I was like, oh, what's this? All right, I'll go in for it. Whatever. I don't care. Blah. I hate the world right now. And I walk into the room and they're like, that was great. Can you come back tomorrow? Because our director wasn't here, but we just want to just do exactly what you did. Oh, yeah, sure. And so I come back again the next day and they're like, well, great. You're hired. It's picked up for 13 episodes. Because I was a replacement. They had cast another actor as Dale, and then they were moving the production, I think, to LA, and they just wanted to try something different with that specific role, and I guess they were going to make it beefier. I just was, it just, and maybe because of the fact that I was in a sour mood and didn't care, helped make my audition. I had no nerves or anything. And then suddenly I'm now on a set with Minnie and Eddie and
Yeah.
Shannon and Noel and that Greg Henry, Margot Martindale, like what a cast.
Yeah.
Um, Julianne Emery, like it was an amazing cast, uh, and I didn't really have to do anything. Like this NBC pilot, I had to jump through hoops. I had like 5 auditions for it. I like and then hoping, praying it's gonna get picked up, and then I walk into the Riches, and it was like an audition and a half for just a few people, and it was here's 13 episodes of television.
Wow.
Yeah, it was great.
Dang. Yeah. I mean, that just seems to be how that sort of business is, where it's like it is either like grueling or it's normal, or like you just never know what you're gonna get, or it's just you're gonna walk in and you're like, here's 13 episodes. Like that's whew.
Yeah, it was absolutely and such a gift. And after I'd been, because this was 2006, 2007, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter was about to be born. I did a film with Matthew McConaughey that year, so like it was a good run. It was certainly like when you feel like, okay, I'm now at this plateau. I've been working up the hill for a while, and now I can stand here for a little while, and recognizing that the hill is steeper going forward, and I will continue that climb up.
That's awesome. That's so
Yeah.
cool. Okay, well, we're got my timer here. We're getting towards the end of the show, so I do want to ask you this because everyone's heard this story about. Oh, you okay? Okay. Oh, you were getting ready. You're getting ready for it.
Yes,
Okay.
I am. I'm taking action pose.
Have you ever gotten to play D&D on a set with other co-stars?
Not on set. No.
Okay.
No, I've had co-stars come and play D&D with me in the Nerd Lair. Thanks, baby. And I've turned the game on to people I've done shows with, but I've never played it in the wild in the workplace. No.
I asked that because there's always that story that like they played D&D on the set of Chronicles of Riddick or something, and that made every nerd just like, oh my god, this is so cool. So
and I guess that's how Deborah Ann got turned on to it, because Manganello, I think, played it with her on True Blood.
That's right.
Yeah. And then I think Anthony Rapp brought it to the cast of Discovery.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we're slowly infiltrating popular culture here. It's great.
It's so wild. Like people who I would just never even expect to be interested in playing it are like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be on a show and try it out. Like it's so cool to just see people not like they don't have to like fully embrace it, like like you got the Green Devil and everything behind you, but like just giving it a shot. Like the voice actors for Baldur's Gate 3 did the show with High Rollers recently, and it was so cool seeing them play for the first time.
Well, if you watch the DVD extras of the Dungeons and Dragons movie,
yeah,
they're all playing it, and it's just fun to watch. And then seeing the Stranger Things people actually play it with B. Dave running that game, it's fun. And I've dragged some of my fellow 12 Monkeys and Star Trek people to the table, and it's been a blast. And I will do more.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we got to start wrapping things up because we got another show that goes after this. I know. We are at the time, unfortunately.
Could have danced all night.
That might be the best response to me saying we got to end the show. But Todd, if folks want to find you, shows that you've been in, anything like that, where can they go to find you and whatnot?
Well, don't come to my house, because that's creepy.
Don't do that. That's serious creepy. Real talk. Don't do that.
You can find me on X.
Oh God.
At hey, look, it's a chosen name. I have to honor it.
Okay.
It is a chosen name.
It is. That's a fair point.
Yeah. So I will honor it. On X, I am Todd Stashwick. On Insta, I'm T Stashwick. I'm also on Blue Sky, I think, also as T Stashwick. I don't really do much of the Facebooking anymore. And then you can find my groovy wares and nerdy paraphernalia at the Nerd Circus.
Yeah, that's so cool.
So you go to the nerdcircus.com. I worked with an artist, Charles Thurston, because I wanted a dice box that looked like a 70s 80s basement. So it's wood paneling with orange shag carpet.
No, oh my gosh.
Yeah. And this is available at the Nerd Circus. It's a dice tower that says, "May you always roll with advantage." Because I realized there's no "May the Force be with you" in D&D, so I made one. And so yeah, you can find my stuff at thenerdcircus.com. Beyond that, you know, we're in a strike, so I'm not going to hawk my TV shows.
That's fair. That is all we're gonna say on that.
Well, you can go to
strikes.
IMDb and see what I've done, and you decide a la carte.
That's fair. But again, yeah, support your strikes, support your unions. That is gonna do it this week. Thank you, Todd, so much for taking the time to talk with me today. It's an absolute blast.
My pleasure.
Hope we get to do it again some point in the future.
Go get Boom Boom, people.
Go get
He's
Boom
waiting
Boom.
for you. He's lonely, and it goes for extra life.
Yes.
He just wants a little scritch behind the horn. A little scritch behind the horn, and he'll serve you a drink.
Is it
a
too
mystic
late to change
libation.
the flavor text for him? He just wants a little scratch behind the horn. All right, well, that's gonna do it for this week's episode of IL Insights. So until next week, take care of yourself.
Woohoo!